Of his story, but what a blessing it is to have you this morning here and be able to worship the Lord with you. And I know you have two of your friends who are on the work as well with Arise Rwanda, Moses and Darius here as well. So we're really glad you guys are here. And we just want to hear a little bit about just what God's doing there, how we can be praying, how we can celebrate what God is doing, and just how we can be praying for what God's doing. So, great.
Great, thanks Kevin. We appreciate the opportunity to share what God's doing in Rwanda. The first time that I met John was in August of 2009, and I was amazed at the joy and love that he has, not only for Jesus, but for people, despite growing up in some very horrific circumstances. So John, you've actually, by God's grace, survived two genocides, one in Uganda and the big one in Rwanda in 1994, where 1 million men, women, and children died in about 3 months by fellow countrymen, fellow friends, and even fellow family members. So share with us about that.
Well, thank you so much for having us here. It's a privilege that we come to worship with you. As Kevin said, I'm traveling with this wonderful man here from Rwanda, so we bring Rwanda to you. But thanks for having us here. So I was born in a refugee camp in Uganda, but I am a Rwandan, and so are my friends. My family was kicked out of Rwanda in 1960 because there was a civil war happening in Rwanda. So I was born and grew up in the refugee camps / concentration camps in Uganda. There was a civil war going on in Uganda when I was born. So I got to see that, experience that from the ages of 3 to 6. And there's so much brutality going on. Men and women being killed every day in my eyes, living no shortage of food, water, and medical care. People dying and starving, and every day people being killed before your face, a 3-year-old, and any sort of abuse you can think about that was happening in that refugee camp / the concentration camp. The highlight of it was seeing my 2 sisters dying of starvation and disease. And if my mom hadn't learned about a feeding program that had just been started out of the camp, I would have died too. So she escaped the camp, took me in the feeding program, and that's how I became alive again. So I got to see that growing up in extreme poverty after the camp and the war, really extreme poverty and brokenness. And also in 1994, the genocide, as Greg was saying, was happening in my own country. And my father had left Uganda along with other men and women to go and fight and stop the genocide. And so in 1994, 12-year-old boy decides to go to Rwanda by himself to find my father, but also to find what was happening in my country. And growing up as a refugee boy in Uganda, we used to hear from our parents that Rwanda was a country that was flowing with milk and honey. So it was like the promised land, if you wish. And so on the bus on my own and hoping that I'm going to cross over and be in the promised land, but I found something different. The genocide was still happening in Rwanda and hit in my face. And I saw a lot of things again. This is my second genocide happening. I saw a lot of things as a 12-year-old boy, seeing, kids still laying helplessly in churches and hospitals, dying, and seeing dead bodies across the country. And the whole land, the whole country was torn apart of the genocide. I lived in the orphanage home for 3 years. We got to see a lot of the trauma and suffering that was going on. There was no hope for us to live in the genocide, and it was very traumatic. In matter of fact, Rwanda was pronounced as a failed state right after the genocide. As Greg was saying, we lost 1 million people, men and women and children, in only 100 days. That was the fastest genocide in the history of mankind. So I lived with that, and then there was an organization called IRC, International Rescue Committee. It's an American organization, and they came to work in the genocide to give people support, relief, water, food, and part of it they were getting kids from the streets in hospitals. Some of them were still stuck in their dead mothers in all the places and putting them in the orphanage homes. So right after the genocide, I was so fortunate. They put me back in school. I went to one of the top high schools in the country, and then I went on to college in Rwanda, and I worked into a microfinance, small businesses, for women, helping women start small businesses. So that was my life growing up from refugee camp, returning to Rwanda in the genocide, and then life after the genocide.
So as a young 10-year-old, John made a promise to God that if God would see him through his education, he would spend the rest of his life serving those living in poverty. So John, maybe share a little bit about how God was faithful with that promise and ultimately led you to CSU.
Well, be careful what you pray for when you're 10 years old. When I made that promise, I didn't know God was going to hold me accountable. But back in Uganda in the refugee camp, I returned back from school. I was in 4th grade, and then there was no money to send me back to school. So I had to drop out. I was going to drop out. And so my mom and I were very helpless. And I went out our little house, I knelt in a coffee tree and made a prayer. I said, God, if you're real and you see me through my education, I'll leave the rest to serve the poor. Now, again, be careful what you pray for. And so, fast forward, I'm working with World Vision, and then with Opportunity International, and then I got a privilege to come to CSU across the state. Any Rams here? No Rams. So that was 2009 to 2011. And I was enjoying every single bit of it. The only one thing I didn't enjoy was the snow. The coldest my country can get is between 60 to 80, right? And so you can only imagine when the snow hit the ground. The first time was really beautiful. It was like I saw the story of the Bible, the manna coming from heaven down, and the second day was a snowstorm. And I called my accounting professor. I said, I am not coming to school class because the world is ending. But rather than that, I was enjoying the beauty of the country. I was enjoying the people that I've met. I'd met Greg, and I had so much amazing time. And I was really living the dream, and I was really feeling very comfortable living in the U.S. I didn't want to go back. For those who haven't hosted me, but for those who have hosted me, I really enjoy a 40 minutes hot shower. Right? So it's going to be hard for you to take me out to Rwanda again and see all this brokenness and poverty again. I could make a difference here. But God, when I was walking down the aisle from CSU, when we graduated, I had the same voice. It's your time to go back and honor your promise.
While he was at CSU, I found out that he enjoys NBA basketball, so we had a chance to go down to a few Denver Nuggets games. And I invited him to play some basketball with the group of guys that I play with. First time we played, we were playing 5-on-5, and I noticed he was not guarding his opponent very well.
And that was me.
I went up to him, I said, John, your teammates are getting upset at you. And he said, well, I'm trying my best, but all you white guys look the same. So, as we know, the draw on America is certainly great, particularly those that live in poverty. But John fulfilled his promise to God, went back to Rwanda, and shared with us the community of Beneza that you stumbled across and starting Arise Rwanda.
Well, I knew that would come. He always calls me on a challenge. It's a golf tournament or basketball or something. It's gonna come, and he wants to humble me, anyways. So fast forward, I graduate at CSU by God's grace, one of the most outstanding graduate, and then I'm on the journey back to Rwanda, and I don't know where God is calling me. I'm just listening. Why do you want me to go? And I knew it was going to be Kigali, the main town, where you can have clean water, you can have access to internet and electricity, right? Deal. And first job I got when I got back to Rwanda was to work for the president. Who turns that down? But God had a different purpose. God had called me to a different location. And this is Boneza, 5 hours away, out of civilization. No one wants to go to Boneza. It's very poor. It's a community of 25,000 people. When I got there the first time, there was only one a broken water pipe, and that's where 24,000 people were getting their water from. that broke my heart. And there was no electricity, there was no restaurants, there were no roads, there was completely nothing. There was no schools there. And so what do you do with all of that? You know, I knew God was calling me here, but what do you do with all those huge problems, you know, huge need that was there? Women were struggling to support their families. There was so much, after the genocide, there was so much going on with youth and reconciliation, and I believe many Americans can learn from how Rwanda's come by, but there was so much complex in the problems. So this is Boneza, very poor, one of the poorest part of the country, 5 hours away from Kigali. There's completely nothing. And what we did, our first program was to start a first preschool under a tree. What do you have in your hands? You know, Kevin was talking about the skills, and God is asking, what do you have in your hands? We had a coffee tree. So the first 60 kids that was our preschool and a feeding program was under a tree until we moved into a church that had no roof on the top. And then but finally we roofed the church. And now we have 5 preschool programs with 250 kids every year. And then with the clean water, we have built 10 water wells. We are reaching this community with 65% with clean water. And Darius and Moses, Darius works with the women microfinance. Over 2,000 women have access now to starting small businesses and through small loans that they can able to support their family through their businesses. And we just opened up one of the top model high schools in the country that Moses is running, and we're teaching technical skills in this school. It's been a great privilege working with the pastors. The local pastors have come together in this community again, and they're working together. Greg has done some tremendous pastoral training, and so is Kevin Denton, and some other people that can provide materials and training to the pastors. It's been a great joy for us to partner with the people of Rwanda, both Boneza. And US has been an amazing support, and people here in churches have been a great support. So thank you so much for doing that.
So again, thanks for the opportunity to share what God is up to. Any of you are certainly welcome to visit Rwanda. We would love to host you and share firsthand what God is up to. Ashley Denton has been there a couple times, and I've been there 6 or 7 times. So we praise God for His grace and faithfulness. If you want more information, just go to ariserwanda.org. Thanks.